What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the Fighting Game Tutorial Series, we are going to be going over improving our animation blueprint part 1. So, the last few episodes in the series, we've been cleaning everything up so that we can have a good product for our online play, our AI, our story missions. We've done a lot over the years, and I just want to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, in the right spot, organized, clean, so that we can continue to work with it. We've been tackling things like the character, the game mode, and a few other major classes like the camera, and today I want to tackle the biggest of them all. Now this is only going to be part 1, but this is going to be our animation blueprint. This is the main class or main file that I wanted to clean up since we have started this cleanup process. There is a lot going on in this class, so it does take a lot of work. But we're going to hop into it and just do what we can do. If you want to get caught up in the series, you can check out how we've done everything in this game, from our throws, our special attacks, our timers, and a lot more. I'll link you to the entire playlist right here in the top right corner. Alternatively, if you don't care about that and you just care about cleaning up the NMBP or making an NMBP that is clean, I recommend you do watch some of our earlier episodes on creating the animation blueprint, so that you can see how we got to where we are today and why what we're doing now is going to improve upon that process. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. Now, this is a code and blueprint tutorial series, and we're going to be cleaning up a lot of the animation blueprint, converting some of the logic to code, refactoring the blueprint itself, taking old logic out entirely. In today's episode specifically, I would actually just like to clean up the animation blueprint itself. We have a little bit more to do in the game mode cleanup, but there's a reason I'm going to the NMBP now. There's some logic in there that's going to affect how we clean up some other things, and I just want to get started on this one. That way we can clump everything together nicely and cleanly. And before we can even really do that, I want to make sure that our animation blueprint gets as clean as it possibly can be, because it's pretty messy. So we're going to content blueprints NMBPs and mutant NMBP underscore root motion. Whatever your base character is will work for this. Now this blueprint is huge. This is our biggest blueprint by far, and it's got a lot of logic in here. I'm going to start at the most logical place, which is event blueprint begin play. Now in here what we do is try to get a reference to our owning character. The animation blueprint is applied to our skeleton, or it works with our skeleton so that we can play animations, and that skeletal mesh is on our character BP. The character BP is the owner of this animation blueprint. So in begin play, we were checking to see if we had a character reference or not. And if we do, great, we can go to the next part. If not, we were trying to set it here. In blueprint update animation, this is basically a tick event, and it can fire before begin play, which means you could actually set your character reference in here. So we have it in both places, but we don't really need it in both places. You can not only simplify this logic, but remove a lot of the logic that's in here. So you'll notice that what I just described above with setting the character reference in begin play is also down here. In blueprint update animation, we're getting the pawn owner, we're checking to see if it's valid. If it is, we check to see if we've set the character reference yet or not. And if we haven't, we're casting to a mutant BP, making sure we set that character reference, and then checking our game mode. And if we haven't, we're trying to set the game mode. The game mode is also being set in the blueprint begin play. So we have two different events here competing to set these values, and really we don't need to do that. Now there's a couple solutions here, and one of them would be to just remove these nodes from blueprint begin play, because they're being set in blueprint update animation anyway. But the problem with that is then every single time we're calling this update, we're checking to see if these things are valid, just to check and see if our character reference is valid or not, and if it's not, we're setting it. So we're doing extra checks that we shouldn't need to do every single frame that this animation blueprint is running. One thing we can do to clean this up is just start removing these things from blueprint update animation. So one thing we should not have to do in blueprint update animation is see if we have a pawn owner, and if we do, check if the character reference is valid. Then we also shouldn't have to set the character reference to be valid if we're able to cast the pawn owner to the mutant BP, because at this point it should already be valid when we're in tick. Checking it for validity is enough, but we shouldn't have to go in here and set it. You can simply disconnect blueprint update animation from this is valid and bring it over to this get character reference validated get node. So you'll see these are disconnected now. Then we come over to here where we have our character reference check, and you'll notice we're not using character reference anywhere in tick, which means we don't even need to check for validity in here. Again, the purpose of this was to set our character reference on tick, but we have ways around that. We don't have to do this in tick like we were doing. So that means we don't really need this node either. So that means blueprint update animation can go to the next node, which is where we were checking our game mode reference for validity. And if it wasn't valid, we were setting it. If it was valid, we were going to this section here. Now this next section is going to be important. So blueprint update animation should go all the way over to the set player transform node. Now we're going to do some cleanup in blueprint update animation here. So this means I can get rid of reroute node that I have here, setting the game mode reference, casting the game mode to the default game mode BP, which is our special game mode for our game, as well as the get game mode node, the validated get for the game mode and any reroute nodes, setting the character reference, casting the pawn owner to a certain type, the validated get for the character reference node, and now we have a lot less nodes in here. In here, we are using try get pawn owner for a couple things. So first of all, we're getting the transform of the actor. We were also getting the movement component off of the try get pawn owner so that we could check to see if we were falling or not. And we can still do these things, but we really don't have to do it off of the pawn owner. We can just use our character reference. I would remove the is valid node here. I would get our character reference, which I know we removed, and I will convert it to a validated get, but I'm going to now put it in place of this try get pawn owner. So connect it, and anywhere try get pawn owner is used, I want to plug into these nodes here. You can see I've done so, and even the get movement component we can do with the character reference. So we got rid of that node there. Now we can get rid of any unnecessary reroute nodes and clean everything up. So I'm going to disconnect this random reroute node that I had, and just drag the result back in over here where it was connecting to previously. Now I'm going to move everything over. And I will only do the set player transform, set is in error, and everything else after the character reference is valid, because it does depend on the character reference being valid to properly calculate any of this. So blueprint update animation has been shortened to just that. Now if we compile and save, we might run into some errors when we're playing the game. So we can go ahead and do that. So we come into our game here, and it's a little slow because I have the anim BP on this window, so if I go out of this, it looks like normal. When we close, we have some errors. And this is to be expected, because the reason we did all that logic is some of our state machine transition rules depended on the game mode reference or the character reference. And since tick was firing before begin play, these things were firing before begin play, which means they were dependent on the variables set in begin play. And since they weren't set, they're throwing an error. This makes sense. So what we need to do instead is go back to the mutant anim BP and go to event blueprint begin play. Go above it, search for event blueprint initialize animation, and plug this in instead of begin play. You can disconnect begin play. So if we compile and save this now, and we go to the level and play our game, when we come in here, we can attack, do all our stuff as usual, and then when we're ready, we close. We'll get no errors. This is because initialize animation fires before begin play. This is when the animation graph and the state machines are set up, which means as soon as they're ready, we can set these values on here. And when we set these values here, now the state machine will have everything that it needs to perform that logic. So we can remove event begin play and just use event blueprint initialize animation. And now we have the same logic we had before, but it's a lot cleaner. There's a lot less of it here. So anyway, guys, this is the first episode of many of cleaning up our animation blueprint. We are going to have a lot of them, but each one is going to improve our game and our animation blueprint in general. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to learn more about how to clean up your animation blueprint and make your fighting game, then please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and I really appreciate it. If you want to support myself and the channel, then please consider checking out the Patreon, YouTube membership, and Discord subscriptions to send some support my way. I really appreciate everyone who has. Thank you so, so much. If you ran into any problems while cleaning up your animation blueprint or with any of my episodes, please feel free to join the Discord community. there is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.